Hello everyone, welcome to the KZGN News. Today we'll bring you news from the Kern County Sheriff's Department, another new tax and fee increase proposed by Governor Brown, new immigration problems putting all of us at risk, news about upcoming local events, today's gas prices, weather, sports, and much more.
From the Rademacher Hills to Bee Mountain and the mighty Sierras, Ridgecrest to Inyokern and China Lake, this is your news for the Indian Wells Valley with the KZGN News Crew.
Hello, I'm Tom Waitnick. Thanks for joining us for the news affecting Ridgecrest and the Indian Wells Valley. Here's a report from the Kern County Sheriff's Department. The Sheriff's Department has made arrests on a terrible crime that happened last fall. Last September, Kern County Sheriff's deputies were dispatched to a report of an adult male victim who said he had been the victim of a kidnapping. The victim reported he and a female acquaintance were kidnapped and held against their will for several days in a business in the 700 block of Sterling Road in East Bakersfield. The male victim reported that he and the female victim had been physically restrained, assaulted, tortured, and sexually assaulted during the time they were being held at the business. Deputies responded to the business and located the female victim and 3 suspects who were detained. Due to the nature of the investigation, detectives from the Sheriff's Office Sexual Assault Abuse Investigation Unit responded and assumed the investigation. During the investigation, which occurred over a 1-week period, detectives developed evidence that the victims had been restrained in the business, tortured, and physically and sexually assaulted while being held against their will. As a result of the investigation, detectives arrested the following suspects for their listed charges. 27-year-old Jesse Duran Miranda was arrested for kidnapping, torture, assault with a deadly weapon, making terrorist threats, forcible sodomy, and forcible oral copulation. 18-year-old Alexis Marie Poole was arrested for kidnapping. 35-year-old Ingo Gonzalez was arrested for kidnapping, kidnapping with intent to commit robbery, torture, assault with a deadly weapon, making terrorist threats, sodomy with force, sodomy causing injury, and forcible oral copulation. Duran Miranda, Poole, and Gonzalez were arrested and booked into the Sheriff's Office Central Receiving Facility. Duran Miranda is being held on $1 million bail. Poole is being held on $500,000 bail, and Gonzalez is being held on a little over $2 million bail. 50-year-old Norik Teragalstanyan was arrested for kidnapping, kidnapping with intent to commit robbery, torture, assault with a deadly weapon, making terrorist threats, forcible sodomy, rape, and forcible oral copulation. He was arrested as he attempted to board a flight at Los Angeles International Airport bound for Russia. He was booked into the Sheriff's Office Central Receiving Facility and is being held on $5 million bail. There's some bad people out there. Thanks to the Sheriff's Department for a job well done. Last week, Governor Brown provided the State of the State speech. In it, he included a mention of the need to raise funding for transportation repairs. The Republicans in Sacramento have been blasting the governor and Democrats in Sacramento for playing games with prioritizing state spending. The governor and Democrats last year voted to play a trick by funding lesser importance items on the budget and deferring available funds that should have gone to transportation projects to those items. The trick was that they got together and decided that they needed more funding to keep some unnecessary programs running. But to raise funds, that means either raise taxes or set new higher fees on us. So they strategized that the people would not likely support raising taxes and fees to fund these certain programs, but they might support new taxes and fees to pay for transportation projects. So they did the old budget shift trick. They funded everything else and left transportation off the table. There was even a shift of funds that were earmarked by the voters that are supposed to go to transportation projects. Instead, they pulled a trick and used those funds to pay off debt instead of funding real transportation projects. So last Thursday, Governor Brown again started a pitch to raise taxes and fees to pay for much-needed transportation projects. His plan is to raise $3.6 billion a year by placing a new $65 per year fee on vehicle registrations, raising diesel and gas tax increases, and another $500 million could come from fees charged to polluters. I'm not sure how that would be determined. This is a request for new funding from us, even in a year that the state will get about $6 billion more in funding than last year. Still, even with the additional $6 billion in new funding, they refuse to use that increase for transportation and continue to pitch to raise taxes and fees on us. Looks like the Republicans in Sacramento have a real budget battle on their hands this year. Public education will be critical. The governor and Democrats will spin it that the Republicans are against funding transportation projects, while they are crying wolf for new taxes and fees. Truth is, Republicans just want the governor and Democrats to handle the state budget by funding top priorities first, and then continue down the list until the funds run out. But that's not how the Democrats want to do it. They fund all the niceties first, then get to the most important needs, and cry they're out of money. In another California news, the State Department of Corrections is gearing up to start death penalty executions again, possibly this year. Advocates on both sides of the debate jockey to put both choices before voters this fall. Officials overseeing the 746 condemned inmates on the nation's largest death row are pushing ahead with plans to use a single lethal drug to meet legal requirements amid a nationwide shortage of execution drugs. Supporters said at a public hearing on Friday that crime victims have waited too long for justice as the state dragged its heels in adopting a new method of execution. Opponents said at the hearing that the state risks botching death sentences if it moves too quickly in making the change. The California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation will consider nearly 24 comments from the hearing and written comments from about 12,000 people as it develops its final regulations. Any changes would require a new round of public comments. The state is proposing to let corrections officials choose from 4 types of powerful barbiturates to execute prisoners, depending on which drug is available. A recent field poll showed an almost even split among voters on the death penalty, with 48% wanting to speed up the legal process leading to executions, and 47% seeking to replace executions with life sentences without the possibility of parole. In 2012, voters rejected ending the death penalty by 4 percentage points. The proposed single-drug injection process is the latest attempt to resume executions after a federal judge halted executions in 2006 and ordered prison officials to improve execution procedures. 5 years later, a Marin County judge rejected the state's newly developed 3-drug lethal injection regulations. 8 states already have used a single drug for executions, and there is no reason the courts shouldn't quickly approve California's new regulations once the procedure is adopted, said Michael Rushford, president of the Sacramento-based Criminal Justice Legal Foundation. Death penalty opponents said they will keep challenging the regulations. Department of Corrections spokeswoman Terry Thornton said the documents the department used to develop the proposed regulations are already available to the public. The department plans to create the drugs in its own or other compounding pharmacies. Much of the testimony on Friday opposed the death penalty, no matter how it is carried out. Now stay with us. After the break, news about immigration problems. Thanks for staying with us. In the illegal immigration news, all last year our borders have been swamped with mothers sending their children across our southern borders. The Associated Press reports as tens of thousands of children fleeing violence in Central America cross the border in search of safe harbor, overwhelmed U.S. officials weakened child protection policies, placing some young migrants in homes where they were sexually assaulted, starved, or forced to work for little or no pay, an Associated Press investigation has found. Without enough beds to house the record number of young arrivals, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services lowered its safety standards during border surges in the last 3 years to swiftly move children out of government shelters and into sponsors' homes. The procedures were increasingly relaxed as the number of young migrants rose in response to spiraling gang and drug violence in Honduras, Guatemala, and El Salvador. This just adds on to the consensus that we are getting in too many immigrants now. The government does not have the resources to house or properly background check all these migrants. Whether they are legal, illegal, or refugees, our system is overloaded. The visa review process is overloaded as well. And to ease the load, shortcuts are being taken by officials, thereby putting all of us at more risk of attacks on our soil. Opponents to allowing all these immigrants and refugees are citing this and other problems as a reason to pause the process. They believe all this overload raises the chances of more terrorist attacks on our soil. Well, we are now just 1 week away from the first 2016 presidential elections, 1 week from the Iowa caucuses. The latest national Republican poll from Fox News shows these results. Trump is at 34%, Cruz 20%, and Rubio 11%, Carson at 8%, Bush and Kasich at 4%. The latest Fox Iowa poll shows the top 5 Republicans in this order. Trump 34%, Cruz 23%, Rubio 12%, Carson 7%, Paul 6%. A CBS poll shows Trump a little higher in Iowa. In the Democrat race, CBS shows Sanders at 47%, Clinton at 43%, O'Malley at 5%. In New Hampshire, the Fox poll shows the Republicans at Trump 31%, Cruz 14%, Rubio 13%, and Kasich 10%. And in the CBS Democrat race, it shows Sanders at 57%, Clinton 38%, O'Malley 5%. It's been over a week since there were South Carolina polls, so here's the one that came in last Friday. The latest CBS polls show that in South Carolina, Trump is at 40%, Cruz 21%, Rubio 13%, Carson 9%, and Bush at 8%. In the Democrat race, the CBS poll shows Clinton at 60%, Sanders at 38%, and O'Malley 0%. So that's where the polls sit just 1 week from Iowa. And again, as a reminder, the next debates are as follows. There will be a Democrat town hall style debate tonight on CNN. It starts at 6 p.m. tonight. It will be in Des Moines, Iowa, and hosted by Chris Cuomo. The next Republican debate will be this Thursday evening on Fox News. The debate will be held in Des Moines, Iowa. The debate will start at 6 p.m. our time. Moderators will be Brett Baier, Megyn Kelly, and Chris Wallace. And speaking of caucuses, do you know what they are? A lot of people don't know how they work. Well, it's not the same as going to a voting booth and everyone pulling a lever for a selected candidate. Instead, voters will head to a caucus site that may toss several precincts together. Instead of seeing their votes tabulated by the state elections office, they'll see them reported to the state parties, which will in turn report them to the news media. Here's where the parties diverge. A Republican caucus is odd but simple. At nearly 900 caucus sites across Iowa, voters will gather, then hear speeches from whichever campaigns have precinct captains assigned to whip up votes. Presidential candidates can show up and do this for themselves in one of the most intimate examples of democracy in all of politics. Then they'll write their choices on a paper and hand them in. The Democratic caucus process is more complicated. When they show up at one of the 1,100-odd sites, voters will be asked to gather in sections designated for the candidates. They will be counted. If one candidate fails to get at least 15% of voters in this corner, then they are released, and caucus captains for the surviving candidates can personally lobby and answer questions, enticing them to join up. After that, delegates are assigned based on the support for each candidate. So that's how the caucus works. Are you ready for a fun evening of guns and entertainment for the benefit of the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation? Coming real quick now is the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation dinner. This year's annual dinner is Saturday, January 30th, 5 p.m. at Kerr McGee Center. That's this Saturday. Pre-sale tickets can be purchased and is required. If you want to attend this event, purchase your tickets now. Contact Gavin Swanson at 760-589-4537 or email him at rc.rmef.tickets@gmail.com. Now in KZGN continuous effort to provide news and information you've asked for, here are today's gas prices for Ridgecrest and some surrounding areas. Well, since my report on Friday, gas prices everywhere have shown a huge drop. Local prices dropped a whopping 12 cents per gallon. And Ridgecrest has the lowest prices in all the areas we are monitoring. As of this morning, Ridgecrest is ranging from $2.49 to $3.09, Lancaster from $2.65 to $2.99, the LA Valley area $2.59 to $2.75, and the Bishop area $2.78 to $2.93. We have 4 stations coming in at the $2.49 amount. Tune in Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays for updates. We at KZGN always suggest you shop locally to support our local economy. Remember, when you pay sales tax out of town, you are helping those cities pave their streets instead of here. Now stay with us for weather and sports when we come back. Thanks for staying with us. Now here's Lane with the weather.
Thank you, Tom. From the National Weather Service, high pressure will return to the East Coast following the historic winter storm that dumped record snowfall. Low pressure over the central U.S. will bring accumulating snow and some ice to the central and northern plains, upper Midwest, and the Great Lakes. Travel may become hazardous by later Monday into Tuesday. Temperatures across the nation. Carolinas at 48, Georgia at 55, Arkansas at 60, northern Texas at 55, Arizona at 62, and Los Angeles at 65. And for us locally, tonight, mostly clear with a low around 33, south wind 5 to 10 miles per hour. Tuesday, mostly sunny with a high near 58, south-southeast wind 5 to 10 miles per hour. Tuesday night, mostly clear with a low around 33, east-northeast wind 5 miles per hour. Wednesday, mostly sunny with a high near 59, north-northwest wind 5 miles per hour. Wednesday night, partly cloudy with a low around 35, east-southeast wind 5 miles per hour. Thursday, sunny with a high near 62, northwest wind 5 miles per hour. Thursday night, partly cloudy with a low around 36, northwest wind 5 to 10 miles per hour. And Friday, mostly sunny with a high near 64, northwest wind 5 miles per hour. And that is your forecast for the IWV. Now back to Tom.
Thanks, Lane. And now here's Tom Eck with sports.
And a very pleasant early Monday evening. Let's talk about local sports real quick here. Burroughs basketball. The Burroughs varsity boys team lost over at Sultana on Friday night. They were without their top player, Cole Hayes. He was out with an injury. The JV boys team, though, picked up a nice win against Sultana. Varsity girls win again. They've only lost one game, actually now 2 games in the league. They're in second place behind Oak Hills with a 5-2 record. On Friday night, they easily had wins against Sultana, both the varsity and JV team. The JV team off to a very good start. They've only lost 1 game to Oak Hills. Now both the boys basketball and the girls basketball teams will play on Wednesday. The boys will play against Hesperia here starting at 6 o'clock, the JV game at 4:30. And then on Friday, the boys will play home again against Oak Hill, 6 o'clock and 4:30 for the JV boys. On Wednesday, the girls team will be on the road. Also Friday, the girls will take to the road to go play Oak Hills, who beat them the first time here by 5 points in Ridgecrest. Boy, pretty soon it'll be playoff time, only about 3-4 weeks away. Boy, the season really moving very quickly. Well, things didn't move quick enough yesterday for the Cardinals of Arizona. They were demolished over in the playoff game, the NFC Championship game in Carolina. Carolina now 15 wins and 1 loss on the year. Cam Newton in the game yesterday, over 400 yards he accounted for, 4 touchdowns in a 49-15 win. Carson Palmer, 4 interceptions. The quarterback for Arizona had a really tough afternoon. Bruce Arian, the head coach, does a good job, but just didn't have anything ready, any kind of game plan ready against a very good Carolina defense. The defense for Carolina really surprised me. I know they can score, but defensively they just shut Arizona down. Great pressure. They pretty much locked up Arizona. The running game couldn't get going. It was a tough day for the Cardinals to finish their season. Arizona had beaten Green Bay the week before in overtime in Arizona. Now, Super Bowl 50, 2 weeks away. This weekend will be the Pro Bowl from Hawaii. But Super Bowl 50 will be played up in Santa Clara at the brand new Levi's Stadium. And tickets are averaging, get this, around $5,000 to go watch the Super Bowl. A little bit pricey. I wonder how much the first Super Bowl was in 1967 when the Green Bay Packers played against the Kansas City Chiefs. I'll have to find out, but I'll bet it wasn't $5,000 a ticket. Of course, nowadays, just a commercial for 30 seconds can be millions and millions of dollars. Boy, it already makes a lot of money on the Super Bowl. All right, let's switch gears a little bit. Talk about the NBA. Brooklyn gets a win over Oklahoma City last night. Boston beats the 76ers. 76ers now 6 wins, 40 losses. That may look and sound bad, which it is, but it's better than it was a few weeks ago when they only had 3 wins. Toronto beat the Clippers. It'll stop their streak. The Clippers right now in 3rd place in the Pacific Division with a 28-17 record. And Houston beats Dallas last night over in Houston, 115-104. Saturday night, the Lakers lost up in Portland, 121-106. The Lakers now 9-37. Kobe Bryant had a pretty good game, his last game in Portland, as he'll retire this year. All right, let's talk about college basketball. UCLA defeats Oregon State on Thursday night, and they lose to Oregon on Saturday. USC swept. Boy, the Trojans were 15-4 going into the trip up north. They lost to Oregon on Thursday and then lose yesterday, Sunday, to Oregon State. So the Trojans back to the drawing board. They've actually had a pretty good season this year. They were ranked actually in the top 25. First time in 8 years they have been there. Now they'll drop out of that top 25. That's your sports for this Monday. I'm Tom Heck for KZGN.
So that's the news for today. All of the KZGN-TV know you have a choice in what you watch for your news. We all thank you for choosing KZGN-TV, Ridgecrest's only locally owned community TV station. Now stay tuned for Ridgecrest Talk coming up next.